What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for Supergirl Season 3, Episode 16, titled Of Two Minds, which, in my opinion, is a reference to Samantha and Rain, because you see that they're really two minds, they're not really the same mind, and we knew that before. But the first thing I want to talk about in this episode is obviously the debut of Pestilence, and I like how the episode, for the most part, for like the beginning of it, it made you like expect this one character to be Pestilence, and then later it turns out she wasn't, and it was somebody else. Now I definitely thought that it wasn't her, and it was the Doctor, because it was confirmed that actress was going to be a recurring character in this season, and the other actress who we saw earlier in the episode that the episode made you think was Pestilence, she was never confirmed to be a recurring character in this season, so I definitely expected the other the Doctor actor to the character to be Pestilence. But I still like how the episode did that switch, that twist in the episode where you think it's one character, but then it turns out that she dies and it's somebody else. Now, Pestilence herself debuted in this episode, and I thought that she was probably my least favorite of the three Worldkillers. First of all, she doesn't get nearly as much development as the other two, especially obviously Rain. She got a lot of development. Purity, I thought, got a good amount of development in her episode, and what's her name? Pestilence has like no conflict in the episode. The character who is a doctor who heals people really doesn't have any conflict with the Pestilence side of her, where Pestilence just wants to hurt people and destroy the earth, and it kind of bothered me how she had no conflict there, and it just felt really lazy. I really didn't like Pestilence, and I didn't dislike her as a character, but I definitely think she's the worst out of the three, and her powers are just so like disgusting. All she has, she has like these long nails that poisons people, and that's kind of it's pretty nasty to me, and it doesn't work in fight scenes. And I just think the other two Worldkillers are just more interesting. They have better powers. I know neither of them have unique powers. Like Rain has Kryptonian powers, not really unique, and Purity has Kryptonian powers minus the heat vision, but plus the sonic scream, which isn't unique either. But at least they're cool to watch. Those powers are cool to watch. But Pestilence's powers, she has long nails and she scratches people, and she poisons the people she scratches. But obviously they have a cure now using the DNA, so she's pretty much harmless at this point because they have a cure. So I definitely think Pestilence is the worst out of the three Worldkillers. So like I said, Pestilence's power set really did not work in the fight scenes, and that's definitely true, and the fight scenes in this episode were some of the worst fight scenes I have seen in a while on this show. Because you look back to Season 1, the Season 1 fight scenes were just so bad and pretty much unwatchable. They got better, though, throughout Season 2, and then even much better in Season 3, especially with the mid-season finale. The fight scene between Supergirl and Rain was pretty awesome, and then the last episode, Episode 15, had some pretty great fight scenes. So to look at those episodes, and then this episode, it really went downhill in the fight scenes. The fight scenes in this episode were trash, honestly. The choreography and the directing and the special effects in the fight scenes in this episode were so bad, and it's not the first time it's happened in this season. There was this one episode where Supergirl and Mon-El fought, what's her name? Lex Luthor's mother. I don't even remember her name. She's just a forgettable villain, but his mother in the Lexo suit, and it was just so bad. And the fight scenes in this episode aren't as bad as they were in that episode, but still they're just so bad. Terribly choreographed, terribly directed, and terribly special effected. It's just the fight scenes in this episode were pretty trash in my opinion. So I know I've been pretty negative so far in this reviews, and that's definitely true. It's because this episode is not a good episode in my opinion, but there were some great moments, especially the one between Windshot and James. I thought that moment was great. It was amazingly acted by Jeremy Jordan, which is something I said in like 2 episodes ago. Jeremy Jordan is pretty great this season so far, but I definitely think this moment was the highlight of the episode. It was definitely the best part of the episode. The moment where Windshot is dying, and then he says to James that he doesn't want to die. And it's very similar to, this is a big spoiler, to Avengers Infinity War, so if you haven't seen it, definitely skip like 20 seconds, but it's very similar to Spider-Man's death scene where he says that he doesn't want to die. It's very similar to Wind's death scene where he does this, not death scene, but he's dying scene, and he says he doesn't want to die, and there's so many things he could still do, and James' reaction to it is definitely the highlight of the episode. So this episode gave us the return of Brainiac 5. We haven't seen him in like 2 or 3 episodes, which kind of bothers me. I don't like the fact that he just doesn't appear for a couple episodes for here and there, and they don't explain it. Like, does he have something better to do? He's trapped 1,000 years in the past, or I don't think he's trapped, but he is 1,000 years in the past, and he's just not around. I get it, he's a recurring character, he's not a series regular, so he can't really be in every single episode, but he did debut in episode 10, so I definitely think he probably could be in all those 13 episodes. So it really bothers me how he's in the show and he's around somewhere, but he doesn't appear, and they never explain it. But that's not a complaint on this episode. It's a complaint on the season in general. But something I did not like about Brainiac 5 in this episode, and I definitely like his character. I think he's a great character and a great portrayal. The actor Jesse Rath does a great portrayal of Brainiac 5. But something I didn't like about this episode's portrayal of Brainiac 5 was the Disguise-O-Mesh technology. It just seems like such a lazy attempt to have an excuse to not paint Brainy, because he says the reason he does this is because when he walks into a coffee shop or something like that, he causes a panic, and that doesn't really make any sense, because it's been established that this show, this universe, this city has really embraced aliens, like have real actual alien life in the city. So to see Brainiac 5 cause such a panic in the coffee shop doesn't really make any sense, unless if Brainiac himself has been established as a villain in this universe and the world knows him, what he looks like, and Brainiac 5 looks like him. I guess that makes sense, but that's never been established. So the fact that he even uses this Disguise-O-Mesh technology doesn't really make any sense in my opinion, and it just seems like a very lazy attempt to not paint the actor. And they did paint the actor for one small part, but I think that they just did that to show that they can use this Disguise-O-Mesh technology for the rest of the season, and they just painted him for this episode, because if they painted him for that one part, they could have just shot the rest of his scenes. I don't understand why they did that, and it just really seems like a very lazy attempt to not paint the actor and not have Brainiac 5 look like himself. So that's a huge minus on the episode. Something I really didn't like about this episode was the portrayal of Brainiac 5. Not really the portrayal, but just the laziness surrounding the character. One of the main plots of the episode was the arguments between Emma and Supergirl, which are very similar to the arguments between Ralph and Barry earlier this season, 2 episodes ago. The episode where, spoiler alert, Ralph dies. They have this argument about, Ralph says that he should kill DeVoe, Barry says they shouldn't, and the reason that worked and it doesn't work here is because on The Flash you have one character who's actually has the correct argument, but another character who you've been following for 4 years and is the main character of the show, so you just instinctively want to root with him. But Ralph was right in that argument, so I was conflicted, but in the end I sided with Ralph because of Barry's argument, he died. And that's why it really doesn't work here, because not only is Supergirl not a very compelling protagonist, at least in the first 2 seasons. In this season, she is a lot more compelling as a protagonist, but in the first 2 seasons, I never really liked her as a main character. So, like, that part of the argument, the part where you have the recurring character and the main character, and then you want to side with the main character, but the recurring character is correct in the argument, which she is in this case, because she wants to kill Pestilence in order to save millions and billions of people in the future. There's really no question about what she should do, so that argument does not work in this episode as nearly as well as it does in the episode where Ralph and Barry are arguing whether or not to kill DeVoe. And another thing is, like what I said about Ralph, I ended up siding with him, so that's even like more towards the fact that this argument is even less compelling. I thought that argument in The Flash was actually really compelling because The Flash is a compelling protagonist, but Supergirl isn't, and Imra is right. I definitely sided with Imra on this argument, which makes these arguments really not compelling at all, and it seems like the show wants you to think that Imra is wrong, but she's not. She's 100% not. There's never any reason to not kill a villain if that villain is going to kill other people or to kill millions of people in the future. There's really no contest, so I thought those arguments were not done well in this episode. One thing from this episode that was pretty cool was the formation of the Worldkillers, and this is the first episode where we see all 3 of them together. It's the first episode we see Pestilence, but it is the first episode where we see Rain, Pestilence, and Purity together, and it is pretty cool. Like, that end scene, the final scene of the episode, was a pretty good scene. It's just the rest of the episode that wasn't that great. Last thing to talk about is the subplot with Sam and Lena, and I don't really have much to say about it other than the fact that it just wasn't done as well as the last episode. I know this review is pretty negative in the most part, and that's just because I did not like this episode, honestly. So, in conclusion, this episode wasn't that great. There was this one great moment between Wynn and James, and then everything else was just not really great. I really didn't like the Brainiac 5 disguise thing. Pestilence's debut wasn't really done well, and it was done fine, but Pestilence herself is by far the worst Worldkiller. The fight scenes were terrible. Emma and Supergirl's argument was not compelling because Imra was 100% correct, and I don't instinctively side with Supergirl and everything. And then there was that twist where it makes you think that one character is Pestilence, but it turns out that she isn't. I did like that. So in general, this episode was not my favorite episode. So I'll give this episode a 6.4 out of 10. But let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter. Link is in the description for better updates on my videos, as well as daily polls on the Arrowverse. And if you don't have Twitter, definitely get it. But if you don't want to for some reason, definitely click the notification icon next to the subscribe button. And thanks for watching.